Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where on this installment we will be taking a look at the first Doctor story, The Crusade, which is the 14th televised story, and I believe our 18th story that we'll be looking at in the marathon, starting with, on today, the 3rd of July, 2017, with the first episode of The Lion, which, well, the first thing that strikes you is that the quality of this print, I'm dealing with, of course, the episode as presented on the Lost in Time DVD, and I have to say the quality of the print leaves quite a bit to be desired. There's just a slight distraction with a line going through the screen vertically, sort of on the way off. That just sort of flickers every so often, and it's a bit distracting, but what's really nice, and of course, actually, the ending credits are very, very wobbly. I believe that's because this print was damaged, but I'm still happy that we actually have the episode, as two of the story's episodes are currently missing from the BBC's archive. But I have to say, one thing outside of that really strikes me, even with the bad printed quality of the print, the direction on this one is top-notch. Now, this story is directed by Douglas Camfield. He did direct half of the final of the third episode of Planet of Giants, which was a while ago, which had good direction anyway. But this time, he really stands out. He basically quite a long time of the first episode is done. A lot of it's done with very, very minimal dialogue. It tells the story of the TARDIS travelers arriving, while Saracen's ambushy group led by King Richard the Lionheart, and Barbara gets captured, all done very subtly, so much so that if I had blinked, I would have missed it. That was very clever, only doing a quick little cut to see Barbara being pulled away, and then with our focus morally on a different part of the screen, which it helps the audience member immerse themselves in the action, as you have Ian and the Doctor talking just a little bit, and then there's just a lot of fighting. Douglas Camfield really does a good job at the fighting, and then one other shot later on that really, really does it. Again, really, a lot of the points off for this first episode is because of the quality of the print, just because it gets very distracting, and I have to say, there are a couple of moments where the episode does drag on just a little bit. Just a little bit spent with too much time talking, I think. You have Barbara getting captured, and we have, really, what's interesting is that the Dr. Ian and Vicky, they want to go after her, but then Ian goes after her, while the Doctor and Vicky tend to the wounded, which it's very, very good. You have, and it's all done in really three settings. You have the woods, a storefront in Jaffa, and then Saladin's encampment, and then there's also a bit of Richard's encampment at the very end for the cliffhanger. And it's all done at a very, very, very good pace. You have a lot of the things moving back and forth and from front to back, and you have essentially what works as an episode. You have a lot of things that really, really feel like, yes, we know what we're doing. It's good. There's a point when we actually get introduced to Saladin. You have Safed and his brother basically say, tell Alec here, who is, I guess, one of his generals, he's going to be the main villain of the piece, I'm guessing, just because he's playing it a bit over the top. But you have him saying, Saladin will see you if you impress him, and then we cut to behind the curtain and pan over to this great shot of, just the actor playing Saladin, whose face is in shadows. And yeah, sure, a lot of the Arab characters are in yellow face, which is a bit offensive. I mean, it makes sense because it was of the time, so I'm not going to mark too many points off, because, that happens a lot. That happens quite a bit in Classic Who. You have these times where it's not actually quite perfect with characters who aren't white, because, Britain in the 60s was and the television industry in Britain in the 60s was very interesting. And I think Doctor Who actually makes up for some of its foibles by some of the people they've hired behind the scenes, because you have Wars Hussein, who is an Indian man who directed, and, in ways like that, they make up for it a little bit. But yeah, you have just these beautiful shots, and a lot of the story is done. And I like the way they're portraying King Richard as like a king who obviously cares about his men. People always complain. People have said that, oh, they're portraying Richard as a whiny little kid. I mean, in this episode, he really isn't. He's lost two friends, and one of his friends, and a third has been captured. His brother is trying to usurp his throne back in Britain, and yeah, he's had a bad day. His little outbursts is they're a little bit justified, I'd say, at least in my opinion. That being said, The Lion, it's a great start to the story. I honestly can't wait to continue on. So I'm going to give The Lion a 9 out of 10. Alright, it is the 4th of July, 2017, and I just finished watching as best as I can, The Night of Jaffa, the second episode of the Crusade, and our first missing episode that has to be done through telesnap reconstruction since the end of Marco Polo. And I have to say that this episode, because it's in reconstructed form, I have to take a couple of points off simply for being a bit boring in places, because there's a lot near the end. Again, Douglas Camfield likes to tell the story through silence, like he did with The Lion, but because this is all reconstructed, you can't really see the moving actors, and there aren't any clips outside of the bookends, the cliffhanger reprise from The Lion, and the cliffhanger, and then footage of the cliffhanger taken from the next episode, The Wheel of Fortune. So you have bookends of clips, but the rest is just pictures. And for most of the episode, it works, because a lot of this is just talking. Some characters are introduced, especially Joanna, Richard the Lionheart's sister, is introduced with a musical cue that probably looks better when the actors are moving and it's not done all in just telesnap reconstruction. But that being said, most of the episode is still really pretty good. I have to say, I enjoyed a lot of the talking. You have Ian knighted. He becomes the titular knight of Jaffa, and he's going to save Barbara. That is the plot. That he's going to save Barbara. He gets there and he finds out Elakir has kidnapped her, which we already know, which is a bit redundant as we already know it. So it'd be much more effective if maybe it was told when Ian found out. So yeah, that's a bit redundant, but I have to say that most of the episode is done in a very, very good way, with a lot of things just sort of working out. I think with like everything just sort of works out in the story overall, I think. There are a couple of things definitely that I just sort of don't really have much to say outside of, it just doesn't have, there isn't just that much really put in for the effort, I guess you could say. It doesn't seem to work very well. I don't think we have really that much to be done. It just sort of happens, and then the episode, you just can't get too much. It's definitely a slight decrease in quality just because of all of the amounts given to getting the episode together. So I think if I had to rate this episode, because you have the reconstruction, it would probably be better if we had the actual episode, and if it's discovered, I'll probably go back and make an updated extra part of this marathon if it's ever discovered. It probably won't ever be discovered. Who knows? I doubt we'll get any more discoveries. I'm going to have to give The Night of Jaffa a 7 out of 10. But I still did enjoy it quite a bit, so here's hoping that The Wheel of Fortune works out better. Alright, it's the 5th of July, 2017, and I just finished watching The Wheel of Fortune, which has nothing to do with the game show of the same name, but has everything to do with Ian it's William Russell's vacation, so he's on his way to rescue Barbara. Barbara actually escapes. The resolution of Holy Fingers, the guy who grabs her mouth, is actually trying to save her because he doesn't like Ella Kieran and the tyranny that he has to live under, which I have to say is a pretty nuanced portrayal of, the guy as a ruler. I quite enjoy what David Whittaker has done here with this portion of the episode. You have what is essentially a plot that, you have Barbara, and it's Barbara's plot here that I think really makes the episode. I'm going to spoil it, but she gets given a knife as he goes out, and basically is told, all right, if the soldiers come for you, I want you to first murder my daughter, then kill yourself, because that means I'm probably dead. So that's just, it's really dark, and actually quite a lot to have for, just a kid's show. It's really dark, and I love it. You have basically Barbara being told to kill herself if she gets caught, which is it's something that I think a lot of sort of how do I say this? A lot of shows today could really take a leaf from Doctor Who's book at this time and give us that, just the dark parts of the story that, would make the story feel a lot less like, just a kid's show and more like, ooh, we're going to go to these dark places and we're going to show that the world isn't all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. It's something that this episode does really, really well, and I have to give David Whittaker props for that. And it's great to see Douglas Camfield's direction. Like, the reconstruction does not do it justice. Camfield, he uses a lot of stuff. He does a lot of it in shadows. That's sort of his and it really works with the black and white. It makes it feel almost grittier, the episode overall. So that's a really a big plus when it comes to what the episode is. I have to say you have Barbara, and you even have even though the doctor's in it, and when the doctor's in it, it gets a bit more comic. Vicky's actually allowed to get into a crazy dress. Vicky and the doctor really get these nice costume changes over the course of this episode. That's really all they contribute, and then they conspire with the Princess Joanna, who's going to be married off to Saladin's brother, and of course Joanna freaks out about it, and Jean Marsh plays the part wonderfully. Marsh can be very, very cordial, but she also can be just this furious rage, and she's a great actress. Just in these episodes, she does a great job at making the character feel good, and even Ian, who's in it for like one scene that was pre-recorded, that establishes that he gets captured in the desert on his way to try to rescue Barbara. He's great, even though he's in it just for like 5 seconds. Really, the Wheel of Fortune, I have to say it's for televised episodes, it's probably the best televised episode since the end of the Romans. I'm going to give the Wheel of Fortune a 10 out of 10. Alright, so it's still the 5th of July 2017, and I just finished watching a reconstruction of The Warlords, the final episode of the Crusade, and I have to say, even if this existed, I definitely think it would probably be a weaker episode in the story, because, you have, basically the plot is, Barbara is captured, she escapes, then is captured again, then Ian comes to her rescue, the Doctor and Vicky are suspected of being traitors, they all bugger, and then they all escape in the TARDIS and leave, and the story's over. Jean Marsh didn't come back for this episode as Joanna. Julian Glover's still Richard Lionheart. Julian Glover's been playing a great king, and, everything just sort of slows down. A lot of the episode is focused on Ian, who was out of the last episode, and I have to say that if William Russell didn't have to take the vacation, this episode we could probably take out a lot of episode 3 and probably some here and just put them together, and it would work. It would work perfectly fine, and we could conclude the story there. Because while episode 3 was excellent, this one just doesn't have as much material, doesn't do much to do with, or maybe given an extra episode, we could have we could have had some reason for them to something to get them in the story. I don't know if that might drag. I don't know. It's just a weird sort of ending. It's not a bad episode by any means, of course. It's still really good, I have to say. It just doesn't feel quite right. Like there are problems in what the episode seems to want to do and want to be, but it just can't be that because you have to get to the end of the story and realize, oh, everybody's leaving. That's all we really have. But everybody, the characters have to leave, and we've got to get on to the next one. And actually, I really like the cliffhanger of this one. It's really, it's very creepy and ominous. And what I mean, they're in the TARDIS. The lights go out. We get into, and then we're going to tell something. Then we go into live footage of just the TARDIS panning and everybody's just standing still while the lights are out. It's all very, very creepy. After William Hartnell gives off quite a few puns, if I have to say myself. I mean, some puns that really don't. They don't seem to do too much bad, I have to say, at least in the episode. So I very, very much think that this episode is well deserving. I think. I'm conflicted because you have a lot done well. Just the plot itself isn't very good. So yeah. You have really what is, I don't know. I don't know what to give it. It was really good. The direction was probably great, and I can't wait to get to the next story because it's interesting. So I think I'm gonna give The Warlords an 8 out of 10. That being said, we average out the scores of the 4 episodes to give The Crusades the rather high score of 8.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, and please, if you like this video, leave a like. If you disagree with me, or if you agree with me, leave a comment telling me why. And don't forget to subscribe, as next time on the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, we take a look at the Space Museum.